Hello, good morning all. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, can you just wave your hands? Let me be sure my audio sound is clear. Can you hear me? All right, thank you very much and welcome to today's tele-echo session. My name is Prosper Onyekachukwu. I'm a regular host. And working with me, we have Mariam, we have Asha Nelda, we have Dr. Naji, also among other Phase 3 colleagues on the call. Today we'll be looking at yet another interesting one. And but before we start, I'd like to ask that all the facilities on the call should please turn on your video. If you're a health facility and you're on the call, please, we encourage you to turn on the video. Thank you very much. We'll be looking at a very interesting one today, but I'd like to first of all call on the Federal Ministry of Health to give us an opening remark. And we have standing by to do that Labake Ikundayo from she is the population expert at the NASCAP division of Federal Ministry of Health. Labake, please, may want to go on and let's have your opening remark.
Yeah, thank you, Prosper. Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone this morning to another impactful session on ECHO this morning. Today's topic, it's a very important one, as always. And I would like to implore all you participants to please pay special attention, because this will help us, it will be one of the strategies for us to, get a potential client. So I want us to pay attention, and if there are questions at the end of the session, you can actually ask our subject matter expert for today. And I would like to appreciate Prof. Eugenia. Thank you for being on the call this morning to share your wealth of experience with us, and also to all IPs on the call. Thank you. We welcome you this morning, and to our national clinical mentors, you're welcome on board this morning. To Phase 3 team, you're all welcome to today's session. And on behalf of the Federal Ministry of Health and the leadership of NASCAP, Dr. Adibobola Basharu, I welcome you all once again, and also wish every one of us an exciting and impactful session. Over to you, Prosper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Labake. Thank you also to NASCAP for all your wonderful work supporting and providing guidance to this project. Again, we have a representative from CDC Nigeria. We have Victor Adam, who is a team lead for Community and Gender, US Center for Disease Control. Victor, please, can you go on and let's get the good message from CDC.
All right, thank you. On behalf of the CDC leadership, I would like to welcome everyone to today's topic and tele-echo session. We really do appreciate the heavy lifting that goes on in ensuring that these activities and these sessions take place. And we know that people are actually learning and put into practice that which they learn in these sessions. And today's session is by no means any lesser topic. As we approach epidemic control, we want novel and strategic ways to get people identify positives and put them on treatment. And today we're going to talk of different strategies to ensure that this is done. So I enjoin all of us to be very participatory, ask as many questions as we can, and ensure that we put this to practice as we go on. Thank you very much, and over.
Thank you, Victor, and thanks to CDC team for all you do to make this project what it is today. We'll be looking at social network referral in today's echo session. We have one of our panelists, subject matter expert, Dr. Eugenia Ofundu. She is a consultant dermatologist and also genitourinary physician. Currently the HIV manager at the Federal Medical Center, Owerri. She will be speaking to us today, and we are looking forward to learn from her wealth of experience. Dr. Eugenia, please, you may want to unmute yourself and go on.
Good morning, Prosper. Good morning, everybody. Special thanks to Labake and also to Victor for that very important introduction to this topic. I just want to say hello to all the participants that have made out time for their busy schedules to be here with us today to listen to this particular presentation on social network referral. Okay, so Prosper, can we go ahead?
Please, you can.
Okay, that's great. So social network referral, Victor has told us a little bit about why we're speaking to this topic today. And the main purpose of this session is to introduce another approach that can complement index testing and also targeted referral to help us increase and improve case finding for HIV. Now, our learning objectives for this particular session, we hope that by the end of it, all of us will be able to define what social network means and what the social network strategy stands for. We should be able to understand the principles and how this strategy supports HIV case finding. We should also be able to describe the 4 process steps that we use for social network strategy to enable us recruit potential clients for HIV testing, and of course, determine the target population. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. So what is a social network? So a social network can be described as a set of individuals who are linked by one or more specific types of relationships. Go back to the previous one. The previous slide, Prosper, please. Prosper, you're running faster than me. Thank you. So a social network is a set, is a set of individuals who are linked by one or more specific types of relationships. These relationships can be sexual or non-sexual. So you have social networks for families, you have social networks for neighbors, you have social networks for co-workers, academic and professional colleagues. You have social networks due to religious inclinations. There are so many, but all these relationships are interactions between people. Next slide, please. Hello, Prosper. Next slide, please.
Yes, the one on the screen now is social network. Do you want the next slide?
Next slide, yes, please.
Okay.
So having seen, next slide, please. So having seen what a social network is, how do we use this social network? Oh. Prosper, you're going faster than me.
So okay, we go to the previous, I think your own system is.
We're here now, thank you. So having seen what a social network is, how do we use this particular social network, utilizing it as a strategy in HIV management to ensure that we increase our HIV case finding? So social network strategy is a recruitment approach that enables us to use our existing social connections to reach and provide HIV counseling, testing, and referral services to people who are not aware that they have HIV. So it gives us an additional option to provide these HIV testing services to both social and risk network members who are facing a higher risk of HIV. And we can do this through so many methods that we'll see later on. It may or may not require that the person living with HIV, who is the index client, provides the name and the addresses of these contacts. That may or may not be necessary. But there are 2 major principles why we use this strategy, which we'll see in the next slide. Next slide, please. So these 2 principles, next slide, please. These 2 principles look at the fact that people who are in the same social network share similar risks and similar risk behaviors for HIV. That is number 1. Secondly, it is also seen that those who are in the same social network can exert an influence on each other because they know each other and they also trust each other. So this social network strategy is an evidence-supported approach that enables us to identify, engage, and motivate people who are not yet diagnosed to accept HIV testing. And it has been used successfully in reaching key population, both MSM, people who inject drugs, and people who are engaged in sex work. But it can also be used for the general population. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. So this social network strategy has 4 key steps. It is important for us to note that unlike in index case testing, the individual in index testing, the index client is HIV positive, has been identified HIV positive. But for social network strategy testing, the individual who is enlisted may be HIV positive or may be a high-risk HIV negative person. And these individuals are called recruiters. These recruiters are able to identify individuals from their social, sexual, and drug-using networks who may be at risk of infection. And these identified individuals are called network associates. So in phase 1 of this strategy, which is recruiter enlistment, we want to determine who our potential recruiters are likely to be. And we stated that they can be HIV positive or high-risk HIV negative persons. Where can we find these recruiters? And how do we go ahead to screen and motivate potential recruiters? In phase 2, which is called engagement of these recruiters, we want to provide orientation for these recruiters, which is usually not very elaborate. We want to be able to identify and prioritize the network associates that these recruiters are going to go out to recruit. And we want to develop a plan with these recruiters and coach them on how they're going to be able to get these network associates to accept and do HIV testing. Phase 3 is actual recruitment of these network associates from the social networks of our recruiters. They go out and do the recruitment process. And in phase 4, HIV testing actually takes place. Now, in phase 4, the testing could be that the recruiter is actually bringing the network associate to the facility or to the point of HIV testing, or self-testing scripts for HIV are provided for these network associates, or the recruiter is directing the network associates to where they can actually receive testing. So a recruiter has to be able to, we need to be able to identify our recruiters, engage our recruiters, get our recruiters to recruit the network associates, and direct these network associates to HIV testing services. Next slide, please. So the next slide is a more elaborate flow diagram, which we can all look at when we get these slides. Essentially, again, it looks at phase 1, identification of recruiters, phase 2, engagement of these recruiters, phase 3, ability to recruit, phase 4, getting them to go for counseling, testing, and referral for HIV. So the next slide. So our diagram, next slide, please. Our diagram actually brings this process to the fore, right? Our risk network referral usually starts with the client. You can see our client in the diagram, who is part of our program. And this client may have been identified positive or a client we're providing ongoing prevention services for, or somebody who is already living with HIV and is unsuppressed. So this client becomes the recruiter if he or she feels the various qualities that we want in a recruiter, which we'll see lower down, and is counseled to invite his or her contacts in their social and risk networks to come to be tested for HIV, or if they've already been identified and have not yet enrolled, to enroll for ART if they're known to be living with HIV. And when this client actually identifies these network associates who come for testing, having been tested, each network associate that is tested becomes a potential what? Recruiter. And the cycle continues, which we can see clearly in the next slide. Next slide, please. So our first client, as seen in this particular slide, next slide, please. Next slide. Hello, Prosper, next slide, please.
Yeah, just hold on, the system is hanging.
Okay, so let me just, while I'm waiting for you to come across, let's just know. Great, yes, yeah, I can. So our first client, who is in the middle of the ring, has referred 4 individuals. So he has gotten 4 network associates to come for HIV testing. And these are members of his social network, okay? People who may not be his partners, but are within his social network and are practicing risk behaviors. So these 4 clients have in turn referred 9 other people to this risk network referral process. And these 9 will continue to refer. So this is a continuous process, and each person that is referred is a potential recruiter. And because we don't have to use a large number of staff or develop contracts and pay heavily, we are able to reach various social networks that have been challenging to reach in the past, when we have relied solely on peer educators or outreaches or social workers to get clients to come and test. So this is a novel way of getting that done, and it is yielding fruit. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next slide is really interesting. Now here we're looking at combining index testing with targeted referral and risk network referral. So let's start with index testing. Now we know we've gone through index testing presentations in the past, and we know what index testing is all about, where we support the HIV positive index client to voluntarily identify, contact, and link their sexual and drug injecting partners, spouse, and children to HIV testing. And let's remind ourselves of the 4 ways that this can be done. We can do that through the client passively informing his partners, or the client giving the provider permission to actively inform his or her partners, or the 2 of them can do it to referral, or it can be a contract referral whereby the index client agrees that after a stipulated period of time, if he or she has not been able to tell the partners that they need to go for testing, then the provider has permission to do so. So that is our regular index testing referral pattern. Now, for the risk network referral, we noted that some members of key population and even the general population may not consider many of their risk network contacts as being partners. So some will tell you, oh, this is just a casual fling. It's not a long relationship. I only had sex with this individual once. Oh, this is not my regular drug injecting partner. and the person does not include it in his or her index testing referral network. Okay, that is one. Some may not feel comfortable disclosing their status to other members within their risk and social networks because they have concerns concerning confidentiality. So in such cases, we can support the index client or even a high-risk client who is still HIV negative to identify high-risk members within their social networks and refer them to HIV testing. And this is called the risk network referral. This is also a little different from a targeted referral where the index client has little or no contact information to determine how or where the index case could be reached. So take, for example, we have a HIV positive index client who has gone for several parties, be they KP, organized parties, or parties where he or she recognizes that due to the practices that occur during those parties, a lot of individuals are at risk. Risk from disinhibition due to alcohol or due to drug use and sharing of needles. But he or she does not know the names of all those individuals. But he or she knows that, these parties take place on a regular basis, maybe once a month. This individual can provide information that will enable us do what? Targeted referral services. So, risk network referral can be integrated as part of a comprehensive approach that includes various options for clients. So it actually helps us extend the scope of referrals beyond clients who are usually considered in the traditional index testing approach. So apart from my sexual partners, my drug injecting partners, my spouse, and my children, do I have friends? Do I have colleagues? Do I have acquaintances that I also feel are at risk and are part of my social network that I could reach and give information and encourage to come for HIV testing? For the targeted, do I know individuals who congregate in a particular place where if testing is provided, we're probably likely to get a lot of people that are HIV positive, even though I have not had much social interaction with them and I do not know their names, I do not know where they live. So that is how we can combine index testing with targeted referrals and risk network referrals. So let's look at the next slide, which will give us a little bit more information about combining these three. So looking at this slide, you will see that we have our index client in the center of the central circle. And this client has referred a number of sexual and drug using partners and his children, as can be seen in the central circle, for testing using one of the partner notification options we've already discussed. But in addition, he uses a risk network referral approach to refer somebody he knows whom he has had sexual contact but doesn't want to disclose to and feels that this is a very casual relationship, or who he knows practices high-risk behaviors as evidenced in the orange dashed line we're seeing to the left. And this person is then invited to join the network and to choose from the same set of options that were available to the index client. Now, this original index client might also tell the counselor about somebody whom he knows, but he doesn't have the contact name and doesn't have the contact number, but he's met the person at a bar or at a club or at a party, and he feels this person may be at risk and is comfortable telling the counselor the name of the bar, of the club, or the kind of parties and when they hold, where this individual or individuals could be targeted for targeted referral. So you can see that we can successfully combine index testing, risk network referral, and targeted referral, looking at all our social relationships. Next slide, please. Next slide. So where and how could we do this risk network referral? This can occur in the community that we backstop. It can occur at health centers, primary, secondary, and tertiary hospitals. It can occur at restaurants, eateries. It can also occur at clubs, bars. It can occur during parties or through any of the popular social media outlets. And you have the logos for all those social media outlets beautifully displayed. And also for dating apps both for key population and also for general population that might be commonly used in your locale. So these are areas where we could do risk network referral, looking at the various social relationships and networks that are available to our recruiters. Next slide, please. And we spoke a little bit about targeted testing. And we need to know that targeted testing can occur in various ways. So we can target outreaches at the locations where the index client has referred us to, like bars, okay, like clubs, or like even parties, or even hotels. We can target those areas. We can provide testing services at those areas directly. We can provide HIV testing services based on the social, cultural, and other norms of the target population that we see. We can also broadcast invitations to community and social testing events or to HIV testing service providers during parties and campaigns. We can use incentives, even though this is not mandatory, either using coupons, which are provided to the recruiter or index client, or to the counselors to ensure that they are able to mobilize people to come for testing. And of course, we've already spoken to using all the social media outlets such as Facebook and the dating apps, Twitter, etc., to ask people to come for testing. So these are ways we can target, and we're targeting both key population and also general population. So what are the qualities we want in an ideal recruiter? We've already stated that the person should be either HIV positive or a high-risk HIV negative individual who has direct access to the target population we're looking at and is able to identify and engage their network associates, which are people in their social, sexual, or drug networks who are part of this target population. An ideal recruiter should be comfortable discussing HIV and be able to recommend testing for people in their networks, should be able to escort or refer network associates who are identified for HIV testing where necessary, and must be reliable and have a good standing relationship with the facility or organization he or she is working with, and also have access to HIV testing sites. Now, having listened to all these qualities, it sounds a lot like the qualities of a good peer educator, some of which I have listed. But we have to note that there are differences between a recruiter and a peer educator. Next slide, please. So, next slide. So, Prosper, next slide, please. Hello, Prosper, great. Yeah. So a recruiter, unlike a peer educator, is a short-term volunteer. This is the major difference. So a contractual agreement with a clear timeline and goals is made with a recruiter so that he or she understands that this is a short-term agreement, okay? And once the goal is achieved, that recruiter is graduated to make way for other recruiters, okay? Unlike peer educators who are long-term volunteers. Recruiters also require less training and supervision than peer educators, so their orientation is short. And naturally, they work in a small community, a community that they know, where most of the information given is by word of mouth from them to their network associates. And these recruiters may receive compensation, but like we stated, it is not mandatory. And remember again, recruiters can be HIV positive or high-risk HIV negative individuals. So recruiters and peer educators are not exactly the same thing. Along the way, in utilizing social network referral, we have learned some lessons. Next slide, please. Now, one would think that a potential recruiter, no, you skipped a slide. A potential recruiter who has many friends does not. Next slide. It's like it's running.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just go ahead. So some of the lessons we've learned in using social network referrals is that you would expect that a recruiter who has many friends would be a very good recruiter, right? But that doesn't always hold. It may not be the best choice. And somebody who has few friends, who you think may not be a very good option, may actually give you a high yield, okay? We've also learned that newly diagnosed clients might not feel comfortable actually becoming recruiters at that time. They may be shy, they may be afraid of stigma and discrimination, they may just be finding themselves emotionally, so they may not be ready to be recruiters, okay? We also found out that it's important for staff to be involved, program staff to be involved in identifying potential recruiters for their organization. And we need to know that every client, both old and new, is a potential recruiter, especially those who are still unsuppressed. We need to develop clear criteria to identify these recruiters. And we can do that by designing a well thought out screening tool and strive to maintain very strong ties with the target population through our recruiters, through our counselors. We need to ensure that the orientation activities for recruiters gives valuable and concise information that will enable them recruit right. And lastly, but probably the most important, motivate our recruiters by emphasizing the qualities that they have to give and not the risks they run in recruiting. In summary, we must note that using SNS, the social network strategy to recruit potential clients for HIV, aims to increase HIV case finding and has been proven to do this and do this well. Combining index testing, social risk network referral, and targeted referral is beneficial and can be seen as a spectrum where both those who are HIV positive and high-risk HIV negative patients can be used. Understanding the way this strategy supports case finding is really important so that we can put in place the 4 steps that are used, which are recruitment of a recruiter, that is recruiter enlistment, engagement and orientation of that recruiter, recruitment of the network associates, which are the people who are at risk in the social networks of this recruiter, and of course, lastly, HIV testing. And lastly, I hope we've been able to understand where and how risk network referral takes place. So, thank you so much for making our time to listen to me. It's been a pleasure presenting this, and I hand back over to Prosper. These 2 websites will give us additional information if we want to explore this particular topic even more. Thank you, and over.
Hello, thank you very much, Dr. Eugenia, for this wonderful presentation. I believe the audience have learned a lot about the importance of social network referral, bearing in mind that index case testing is no longer enough, that we may go beyond the index testing to the social network of even the index patients. So at this point, we want to open up the floor to see if we have questions. I also know that we'll have Dr. Yetunde on the call, one of our very renowned subject matter experts in counseling. If at any point you want to lend your voice, please just indicate by raising your hands, and you'll be given opportunity to speak. We also still have Victor Adamu. Victor, I don't know if you are still there. Okay, Victor is not here. So do we have questions on what has been discussed? We have quite a number of persons that will provide feedbacks and response to any of our concerns. Do we have questions? Okay, let me ask this one to Dr. Eugenia. What are these high-risk behavior that could put parents of an index client at risk? I don't know if, do you hear me, Dr. Eugenia?
Loud and clear, Prosper.
I said, so I was asking, what are these high-risk behavior that could put friends and the network of an index client at risk?
Okay, so when you're looking for a recruiter, right? A recruiter is somebody who is engaged in high-risk behavior. High-risk behavior could be that the individual has multiple partners, could be that the individual is actually injecting drugs, could be that the individual is disinhibited by drug use or alcohol use, okay? Could be that the individual has occupational risks due to poor procedures carried out, maybe capping of needles and all that. But this individual that is high risk, right? Those people who are his or her partners, sexual partners, okay, identified sexual partners, or spouse or biological children would be captured under testing as members of the index testing network, okay? But take, for example, this individual injects drugs and is a member of a ring, okay, of people who inject drugs. I know I inject drugs. I do my injections and share my needles with Mr. A and Mr. B, okay? But in our club, we're more than 50, okay? But it's only 2 people that I inject drugs with. So those 2 people that he injects drugs with will be captured under index testing. But the other 48 people that are members of this club that he knows are not his partners, those will be captured under risk referral network, because they are members that he knows that are at risk, not necessarily at risk from him, okay? But he knows that they are at risk. But for index testing, those individuals that are captured are those that are at risk from the index clients. I hope I'm making myself clear. Hello, Prosper.
Yes, you are. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So do we have questions from the participants? Do we have questions? Who is sharing something? Can you please stop sharing? Who is sharing his or her screen? Can you please stop sharing? So do we have questions? Can we use the Zoom platform to raise our hands if you have questions?
Okay, Yetunde's hand is up. Oh, Prosper. Hi, Yetunde.
Okay, Dr. Yetunde, you may want to unmute yourself now.
Good morning, ma'am.
Hi, Yetunde. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. And thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. That was a very wonderful one. And just to add to what he has said, and based on the question that Prosper was asking, actually the SNS strategy was majorly focused on the key populations to actually expand the reach to their networks. And so like she has given the definition from the beginning, it includes both sexual and non-sexual partners. So when she, and then I think the explanation she gave about behavior too helps you to understand. So what we are saying is that if a K-pop comes in, gets tested, and he's negative, what we are looking out for are people around him who share the same risky behavior, because we know that being a K-pop, their lifestyle puts them more at risk. And so those are the people you are now looking out for. And then she expanded on it by telling you that the social network does not only include those of your sexual partners or even within your social network in other areas. She now talked about even family members and others. But then the purpose of SNS in the beginning was actually targeted at key population. And that's why you see that the modality in which the presentation is going is actually speaking more to the key populations. But that was a very wonderful presentation. So your people within your network who have the same risky behavior, who behave the same way with you. So you've come, you've tested, you find out that you're negative, and then there are people who are around you, some persons who are your friends, some persons who might not be your sexual partner, but are also engaging in the kind of risky behavior the individual is engaging in. It could be a female sex worker, it could be any other group of persons within the key population. And so that's why the services are extended. Just like she said, it is actually to increase testing and to close the testing gap.
Thank you so much, Yetunde. That's really appreciated. And yes, it is mostly for K-pop, but we also remember that a lot of our facilities here that are on this Zoom call do not handle K-pop. And I want you to remember that this strategy can also be used for the general population. The important thing is that you're looking at the social relationships that the index patient or the high risk HIV negative individual has that you can leverage on to get more people to come for testing. But thank you so much for that particular explanation, Yetunde. Prosper, I believe 2 other hands are also up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, 3.
Can you hear me? So there is a question from the chat box, and I'd like to read it. It said, what if someone is not a high-risk individual and the person is HIV negative, but by virtue of work or environmental exposure knows those at risk and need HCS? Can the person become a recruiter?
Yes, so what you're looking at is what kind of yield are you going to get from this person? So you would need to define what you mean by not being high risk. For that individual to know the persons we're looking for, right? The likelihood is that the person is involved in high risk activities, okay? Or is at the venue where high risk activities are taking place. So if he or she meets the criteria of being able to recruit individuals who are likely to test positive, then sure, the person can be used as a recruiter.
Perfect.
But go back, look at the qualities of a good recruiter. He or she must be able to recruit network associates who are likely to be HIV positive.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So can we have Adebisi Lawal? Can you please unmute yourself and ask your question if you are seated? Adebisi Lawal.
Okay, good morning, and thank you very much for that insightful presentation. It was really enlightening. So during the course of the presentation, you made mention of one of the characteristics of a good recruiter should be people who are virally unsuppressed. So I want to know, is there a reason why those who are virally suppressed are not fit to be recruiters per se? Because it got me wondering at some point.
Okay, thank you so much. Prosper, maybe I should just answer that immediately. So,
Okay, please go ahead.
yeah, so somebody who is virologically unsuppressed, if we remember, is actually an index client, remember? So doing index testing is not just for those you identify newly. Somebody who is unsuppressed is more likely to pass on the virus to members of his social and drug injecting network than somebody who is already suppressed, okay? And because that individual is unsuppressed, it increases the likelihood that he or she may still be engaged in risky behavior, okay? It increases the likelihood that his network may have more positive individuals, either from him or through him, than somebody who is virologically suppressed. And due to U is equals to U, is no longer transmitting the virus. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. Let's have Ubong Jumbo. Ubong Jumbo, can you go on and ask?
All right. Thank you, Prosper. Thank you so much, Dr. Fandu, for that expository presentation. So it's good to know that we can take a step further with ICT, but I'm just a bit curious. When we do ICT and we encounter challenges like intimate partner violence and gender-based violence, is this something to consider during this referral network, and what are the support services available that we can utilize? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Obong. Yes, it is. Definitely it is. And it's really important for us to ensure that our recruiters are safe, confidentiality is maintained. And that's why I mentioned that the recruiter does not necessarily have to bring the individual, okay? The recruiter may just be informing through social network platforms or using the counselors in the facilities without exposing him or herself, okay? And if we want to take it a step further, that's where targeted referrals come in. That's why there's a spectrum. So if you feel there's a risk of intimate partner violence, you may not want to expose a recruiter or even a peer educator to the individuals whom you think may pose a risk to the index client. In that case, you may want to do targeted referral, whereby you're offering services at the location where these individuals are likely to go to, or you're even dropping self-HIV test kits for several individuals, targeting one particular person there to see whether the person will do screening. Just like for index testing, you may actually ask the two individuals to come, the couple, to come for counseling and testing, and actually retest the index client in front of the partner, so that it is not as if to say the index client was tested, has been on treatment for some time, and is now just coming to tell the partner, oh, I'm HIV positive. Both may be tested, even though you and the index client know that he or she is already positive. So we must find innovative ways of handling this to ensure that our recruiters stay safe, our index clients stay safe. And that's why there's a spectrum between index testing, referral network testing, and also targeted referral. When we're stuck, we can use the targeted referral network, which asks for no names or addresses, simply the location of where these individuals can be found. And we zoom in on that location and look at the best option to offer HIV testing to a group of individuals within that location, knowing fully well that we're going to get a yield because we have individuals whom we have been told are likely to be positive there. I hope that answered the question. But yes, intimate partner violence is really important to consider, just like in index testing.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Eugenia, for those detailed explanation. Do we have other questions? I saw someone's hand, but the person has dropped their hand. Do we have other questions? As we ate all the concerns around today's topic, we have about 7 more minutes to respond to it. Okay, we'll have Renate Awo. Renate Awo, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, thank you very much, Prosper. Thank you so much for the presentation, Madam Eugenia. This is actually an apt topic, especially now where old strategies are almost failing and new strategies must be called to bear, to maintain progress in achieving epidemic control. So my question is on confidentiality. I just want to give an analogy. The best ways, to address issues, maybe, let me just give the analogy. Maybe you have a couple who is about to get wedded, and the man comes to the facility, test, and is confirmed HIV positive, and his partner is a health worker, nurse precisely, and this year said they are both faithful to each other. How is the best way, possible strategies to track and, test this health worker, this nurse, bearing in mind that confidentiality, and this is a health worker who can, do her maths and know possibly where. And the partner has said, I don't want my status disclosed for now. So I just, want to know, and so that we can learn on this facility, on this platform, because I know so many facilities may, must have come across this case. I don't know if my question, if you understand my question, sir.
Okay, so thank you so much. This is coming from Renate Awo. Thank you, Renate. My question to you would be, why would a health care worker who is getting married not go for HIV screening with the intended?
Oh, they are actually in the works. They are more like partners. Okay.
Yes, no. So even if they're partners, remember that at a stage, some churches were insisting on mandatory HIV testing, right? As part and parcel of their pre-marriage counseling, right? Yeah. So HIV screening is voluntary. But if a couple decides that they're getting married and we have done our education right, I focus on education now, then the couple should know, both husband and wife intended should know that when they're going for HIV screening, they should go together and have their screening done in front of each other together. Now, you're talking about a healthcare worker. A healthcare worker is assumed to have even more information, if you say a nurse, on HIV screening. So it is assumed that the healthcare worker, right, would know that if she wants details concerning the screening of her intended, she should have presented herself for screening with this individual. That is logical. So when you even have the healthcare worker not presenting for screening, you begin to ask yourself, is the healthcare worker also positive? Why is the healthcare worker not coming for screening with the intended? But if the intended says, I do not want to disclose my information, then what you as a healthcare worker can do is to screen your fellow healthcare worker. If it is positive, you counsel and also ask her to bring her intended for screening. If she is negative, then you will also counsel her and ask her to ensure that her intended is also screened, okay? But you do not reserve the right to tell her, give her information concerning the intended spouse who was screened positive. Rather, it is important for you to continue to counsel that individual as fast as possible. Let the person know of the likelihood of the children from that union becoming HIV positive if the intended is not informed and becomes positive during pregnancy and is not treated. It's also important to let the individual know that it's difficult to hide this information from somebody that they live with. So continuous and repeated counseling would be required. And usually, when you have counseled somebody long enough, the likelihood is that you'll be able to hit on a particular aspect that you can use to appeal to that person and let the person know that the other member of this union needs to know the diagnosis. But in the scenario you've painted, my first question would be, is the healthcare worker also positive and doesn't want to come for screening with the intended without knowing that her intended is already positive? That would be my surmise from this scenario you've painted. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much, Dr. Eugenia. I think your wisdom in responding to this is really very apt. Thank you very much. We have 3 hands more, and then we're already out of time. But let me quickly take the 2 questions, and then I will have Dr. Yetunde speak before we wrap up. So can we have Ipin Benue State? Please, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? Ipin Benue State, if you are there. Ipin Benue Obarike also. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please, 30 seconds, please. Let's have your question. Can you speak if you can hear me, Epin? Hello, Epin Benue State, are you there?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Can you hear me too?
Yeah, I can hear you. 30 seconds, your question, please.
Okay, there's a scenario that the husband is positive, and after this counseling and everything, he still refused to disclose to his wife. And we later find out that this man has been on drugs for over 10 years. And the wife and the children are not aware. And still yet, he's not ready to disclose to the wife. What do we do?
Okay, thank you. So let's, Dr. Eugenia, please, you can note that question. Let's take from IHP and River State Program. IHP and River State Program, NPHC, Lumibo. Can you ask the question, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Prosper. What if in a situation where a particular client, during interrogation, we discover that he's into drugs, and then he also has his network, his friends who also inject drugs as well too. But the facility lacks the capacity to carry out, to go into, reach out to key population. And then this particular client is not willing to like talk to any other person aside the people in the facility that already know. So what's the best way to refer such a person to, in order to carry out testing for his network of friends?
Thank you very much. Dr. Eugenia, please, can you unmute yourself? I muted you. Can you unmute yourself and speak? Dr. Eugenia, you are muted. We can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now, Prosper?
Yeah, I can hear you. Please go on.
Great. So we have a question from Obarike Ito as regards a husband who is positive for greater than 10 years. I'm going to leave that question for Yetunde. That's a piece of cake for her. But I'm going to address the one concerning the client who is into drugs and has a network of friends, and the facility lacks the capacity to handle KP. So that's a scenario whereby you call upon your state and national clinical mentors. Most states have a KP network, okay? And actually have
We can't hear you again.
each state also has a robust network, and the KP Secretariat has individuals in each state. So the national clinical mentor for that state, through the state clinical mentor that backstops your facility, should be able to help you sort this out. Remember, we said that the recruiter must be familiar with the facility and have a good relationship with the staff. It should be a two-way thing, and also know where testing can be provided. So if you cannot handle it, the state clinical mentor should be able to get a facility that can handle that, okay? Through the national clinical mentor, and of course, the SAPC for that state. And these individuals all work hand in hand. I believe some of our national clinical mentors are on the call and have experienced such cases and have been able to sort it out with the state. So over to Yetunde so that she can address the question on disclosure. Yetunde, over to you.
Thank you. Dr. Yetunde, can we have it, please?
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Ijunju. Okay, the two cases that were presented, the two scenarios, is just one of the dilemmas of counseling. But then I keep saying it, once the process is faulty from the beginning, then you can expect to have issues like this that were now presented. And so as we go back to the beginning, which is the way information are given, we need to understand that talking about HIV, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of information that clients need to have to make an informed decision. If you actually check through what the definition of counseling is, it says that it helps people, it gives people accurate information for them to make an adequate make an informed decision. They get adequate information for them to make an informed decision. And so there's no way an individual makes an informed decision when they do not have adequate information. And so you're talking about, Dr. Ijunju actually answered the initial one about having two cases of someone that's a couple, one is tested, one does not want to talk about disclosure. And that's why we need to help people understand the importance of why they are getting tested. And then talk about issues around disclosure, meaning of test results, how test results are going to be managed, whether they are single or not. We need to talk about risk assessment. When you're assessing in introducing HIV testing, you need to assess clients' anxiety, what their depression is, what are their history. You need to talk about the potential risk of testing to them. You need to take note of other issues that most at times are neglected during a counseling section. And then we also need to understand that issue of disclosure is a process that could take weeks, months, and even years. But then it is our responsibility as service provider to keep helping people to understand the benefit of disclosure. And that's why we need to understand what we need to say at every interval. Informations are graduated. There are informations you start with for a client once they want to get tested. A client comes to you for premarital tests. So it's obvious that there's a partner. And so you need to talk about the partner and bring in the partner into the picture. But whereby you decided to undo someone who came in for premarital tests as an individual, in isolation of the partner, then you are going to have issues that you have just presented. And the initial person who was talking about the health facility, the partner that is a nurse, at times let's try as much as we can to be professional. You are saying those things maybe because the person is around. You are becoming now sentimental. You are no longer professional. You are no longer acting as a counselor. So these are some of the things we need to look into. We need to go back to the basics. We need to go back to the way informations are being given, the kind of information we give, and the way in which we give this information. We need to help people to understand the process of treatment. We shouldn't just jump from testing people because we want to get numbers and then putting them on treatment. As we do this, we can be sure that we have a backlog of problems that we are going to be facing after a period of time. And that's what is actually happening now. So somebody who tested 10 years ago and up till now has not disclosed his status, it's possible that the person does not even understand what is involved. Because if an individual understands that is more at risk even than the partner who doesn't even know his status, is a kettle of fish for that individual. So we need to actually look back and see the process through which we take our clients. And I keep saying it. Once a counseling section is faulty, you can expect a backlog of problems that we are going to be having in the system.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Yetunde. Again, I will still have questions, but please, I want to ask that you may need to send us this question via mail, and then we'll have it addressed and sent back to you. For salvation of time, we need to stop here. So I don't know, CDC representative Victor Ademu, are you still there? Okay, we lost Victor. So Yetunde, can we have a final word from you, please? Sorry, Dr. Eugenia.
Oh, thank you so very much, Prosper. Thank you to all the participants that stayed till the end of this presentation. It was a pleasure making this presentation. Special thanks to Yetunde for all the inputs that she made. Thank you, Labake. Thank you, CDC. Thank you, everybody. And here's wishing you a wonderful working day. Over and out.
Thank you very much. Let's have a closing remark from Omo Labake Ikunda from Food Administration. Labake, please, let's hear you.
Okay, thank you, Prosper. Thank you, Prof. Eugenia. This presentation has been very insightful and it's an eye-opener. Thank you very much, Ma, for always sharing your wealth of experience with us. Really appreciate you. And then to Dr. Akane, thank you, Ma, for the for further clarifications on this topic and your useful contribution as always. And to our participants, we really appreciate you this morning for your participation, your comments, and also your questions. We really appreciate you. And to CDC
hello, Doctor. Hello, hello, Labake.
Dr.
Labake, your network is bad. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being part of the section all the time. For you, then to Vice President. Am I clear now?
I think I may let you go. Your network is bad.
Okay, all right. See you all next week. Bye. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So from all of us here at Fast Stream, I want to say thank you. And we look forward to next week. We'll be having a case-based presentation from AP. And then we look forward to learning from them next week. Thank you very much and do have a great day. Bye for now.